But, you know, the Trump criminal trial and the insane Supreme Court arguments weren't the only thing that occurred last week, because the news never stops. It's incessant. It's like, again, because Trump is like, he's like the Dave Chappelle skit with Charlie Murphy. I brought this up a number of times, where Charlie Murphy was talking about Rick James and, like, you know, grinding his feet in people's couch and smacking people at the club. Trump is a habitual line stepper. He like, wherever there's a line, he has to step past
wherever
it.
There's a white couch, Trump is going to rub his muddy boots onto it, pretty much.
I'm Donald Trump, bitch.
F your couch.
Yeah, they want to do
Trump
that
to America.
Yeah, we've dropped so many F bombs that we're going to get banned.
Well, that's why I said F.
Yeah, good job there. But no. So last week, Arizona prosecutors indicted 18 co-conspirators in the fake elector plot to steal the 2020 election. That included all of the fake electors, along with, and these are fun facts here, Rudy Giuliani got his ass again. Mark Meadows, I'm glad someone else is trying to hold him accountable, because we don't know how Georgia is going to go. John Eastman, I'm glad, like, he's been disbarred, so he's also facing criminal.
Oh, so he can't represent himself. I thought him and Rudy were going to have like a reciprocal thing.
I love this for them.
They can represent each other.
They can't. So sad.
That's funny. This is a new one. Boris Epstein. He's finally been indicted in a jurisdiction for his role in the fake elector plot. I was wondering when someone was going to get around to him.
When I saw his name, and it was like, wow, okay. I thought he had fell into the background, but no.
Jenna Ellis managed to make her way into this indictment. Michael Roman, who was key in coordinating with the fake electors, he's also been indicted here, as he was in Georgia. Kelly Ward, which is the former head of the Republican Party.
Love that for her.
Yeah, she was irate a couple of years ago about people not being locked up for cheating to steal the 2020 election. And here we go, baby. Here we are.
Kelly Ward is a piece of work. That woman is something else, and she's going to die on that hill.
Yeah, happy for her. She got her wish. They're locking them up, Kelly, as you suggested. And then my personal favorite of all the people indicted in Arizona over the course of the past week here is Christina Bob. Yeah. So this is why Christina Bob,
she's no longer representing Trump. He had to put some distance there.
Well, actually, it's funny you say that.
But she's the head of election integrity.
Well, darn it, you beat me to the joke. Yes, the new head of the election integrity at the RNC has been indicted for a lack of integrity from cheating in the 2020 election. No, but the reason why she had to get the boot from Trump's legal team, Carol, is because, well, do you remember Evan Corcoran by any chance? Does that name sound familiar to you? Mm-hmm. Well, that was one of Trump's lawyers in the classified documents case in Florida, and he had to get the boot from Trump's legal team because he got crime fraud accepted because they signed off on those documents saying that all of the classified documents had been returned to the FBI voluntarily. And then when, like, the FBI raided Mar-a-Lago and they were like, oh, damn, here go these documents. You told a lie, bro.
Make attorneys get attorneys.
Yes. Well, Christina Bob was she was the lawyer who signed off on the document as well.
She handed that envelope over.
Yeah. So, yeah. She was in the crosshairs of the Department of Justice for quite a while here. And at the time, I just how long has it been? Has it been a year and a half? It's been a long time.
It was August. Yeah, it was August, September, 2022?
October. Yeah. I think in October was when we got news of this arrangement where Corcoran didn't want to put his name on that. And then Christina Bob did, or maybe it was the other way. Look, it's all right. It's been a long time ago. My memory is fading slightly. I'll have to look that up. But one of them put their names on that. And I was like, oh, the second they did that, somebody's about to get crime fraud accepted. And that's what happened. And I was like, Bob and Corcoran, need to get their own lawyers. And here we are, Christina Bob getting indicted for something totally separate, because that's how many crimes you commit when you're Trump's lawyer.
But you know what's so crazy about Christina Bob, and this is why I think she's like a hair smarter than
Alina
Habba,
Habba,
is that is because Christina, she had them like sign like that she wouldn't be like held accountable. Like, are you sure? Are you sure I'm signing for this? I'm giving this over, that everything's copacetic. She
put a caveat in the language that said, to the best of my knowledge, as opposed to, we guarantee that all the documents have been,
And wording is everything. And that was a smart move on her. And then she just kind of fell into the background. It's like, I'm just going to do news.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that's how she got the job, right?
Was she on Newsmax, RBN?
OANN, one of those.
One of those.
Okay,
but
here's the deal, audience. All right, so you know Christina Bob and you know Alina Habba. How do you tell them apart, right? And that's like, that is the game we're constantly playing here. But like, of course, my favorite
only
Alina,
one of them has been indicted in Arizona.
Totally fair.
And fined $1 million. But no, that's the other.
That's one. Alina Habba. Yeah, that's so. My favorite Alina Habba fun fact is the detail that, like, initially she was representing parking garages.
Yeah.
and that level of legal expertise is how she ended up losing Trump $500 million.
And
well, don't forget that she had to pay like $20,000-$30,000 to her only Black employee at the law firm for throwing the N-word around in her office.
So she was perfect for the Trump legal team. And she also had to pay that $1 million settlement for that bogus lawsuit against Hillary Clinton, and Pete Strzok and a number of other people, where the judge not only threw that out, but was like, hey man, this was ridiculous, pay up guys. But yeah, so I just like to point out how insane it is, just the number of lawyers that have worked for Trump that have been indicted over the course of these past what's it been, almost 10 years now, 9 years. Just insane. And it, I can't believe.
Only hearing about the ones that haven't fallen outside the statute of limitations.
All right.
But how many of the lawyers like Tacopina, who actually had a pretty prestigious career, like he represented Jay-Z, he represented all of these like celebrities and stuff, who have literally willingly put their careers and reputations on the line to get involved into Trump's legal mess. And Tacopina, like when the Stormy Daniels story first broke, he was like, oh yeah, this is bad for him. Like, this is completely different. And then the guy takes up his case. Like, the cognitive dissonance and how they're short-term, it's freaking insane. And it's like, wow.
Yeah, and they have to forget everything they previously said for the grift is crazy.
Yeah, like, and that they have said these things on camera, on tape, in interviews, and then literally a year later, and they're like the complete opposite. And there's no pushback from MAGA, no pushback from, as if that never existed, knowing that this evidence and that this confirmation and backing up is out there, and they have they just go on like, okay, yeah.
They all become whatever. Bill Barr. Even Bill Barr was like, Trump should be nowhere near the White House. And then they're like, all right, well, are you going to vote for him? Yes. What? Because not only do they, after they get in trouble, they're like, well, now I'm going to not support him. And then they slink back eventually to always. It's just wild. It's
well, you
wild.
know what though? That kind of worries me, because where they were like a year or two ago, and like during the January 6th investigation and the hearings and everything, and the things that they were saying. So for those that are backtracking, especially someone like Bill Barr, who is very shrewd, he's not a dumbass. He's not dumb by any means. But it lends me to believe that they feel like there is a real chance that Trump will be in the White House, and they are trying to CYA. And that worries me, because I'm wondering,
and they're scared that he's going to get,
know that we don't know.
They're scared that he's going to get presidential immunity and have them assassinated.
And if only there was some way to not vote for him.
Well, that's what Joe Biden's for.
I think that is something that we should pay more attention to, that the people that are kind of turning on their heels and backtracking a little bit, why are they doing it? Like, is there something that they're privy to that we're not? Is there something that they know?
They're worried he might win. So, okay, look, once it became fairly obvious that he was going to wrap up the Republican nomination, it's basically a coin flip for him to become president. They don't need to know anything is in the works about the potential for him winning. He's the nominee. He's got a shot. So everybody has to CYA, as you so eloquently put it, and get their ducks in a row and get back on the bandwagon. Because look, and we talk about this a couple of times, but one of the first things Hitler did when he came to power, it wasn't taking out opponents from the other party. It was cleaning house in his own party.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
The brown shirts was right there, and they helped him get elected. And then as soon as he had power, well, get appointed, and as soon as he had power, he went and got them brown shirts up out of there because they were a threat to his power. And then he went on from there. So, and they're his brown shirts. So one of the things about these indictments in Arizona is elections have consequences, because I know a lot of people are like, man, it's awfully late in the game for Arizona to be indicting the fake electors when these other states seem to have been so far ahead. But if you think about it, the Arizona investigation is the baby of all the investigations, because this investigation didn't start until 2023, because the Arizona Attorney General prior to Chris Mays was a Republican who said, I ain't going to look into this. So once Chris Mays won, she was like, all right, sure, my office will look into this. We'll do our due diligence. And in a year and a half, what month is this? In less than a year and a half, less than 18 months, she got indictments out the door and ready to go. Now, a lot of people are going to ask, hey, if she indicted all these, fake electors and the co-conspirators higher up the chain, why didn't she indict Trump? And I have a theory on that. And my theory is because it's so close to the Supreme Court decision on presidential immunity, and whatever the decision is, the way the decision will be worded about, what is considered immune acts or presidential acts and what is considered private, she'll be able to tailor her indictment in a way that can navigate the Supreme Court's decision on presidential immunity so that indictment still stands. Or at least that's my theory on it. Because, like, if you're indicting Alina Habba and John Eastman and Mike Roman, these people were right there with Trump, working with Trump, and you have enough like Trump is literally an unindicted co-conspirator in the indictment. The only reason you're holding off on that, obviously because indicting him could create some delay given the Supreme Court decision, but also you want your indictment to stick, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, a prosecutor, a DA, they're going to take cases they know they can win. They're not in the business of like frivolously filing, cases and going after people. It's like, okay, I know I can win this, or if they don't think they can win, okay, we didn't have enough evidence.
That's kind of this was kind of the argument the Justice Department used in the Supreme Court, that prosecutors don't do that. They're like this. Yeah,
basically, like there's so many protections in the legal system that even for a rogue prosecutor, it'd be difficult to go after a former president. But no, the walking into a bar joke, Carol, that would be a former president, a pecker, and a porn star walk into a bar. Yeah. Anyway,
President Pecker.
Yeah, I just think that, so part of the reason Jack Smith didn't indict any of Trump's co-conspirators in the January 6th, or I guess the greater plot to steal the 2020 election, is because if he had done so with all of the numerous co-defendants, all these delays would have affected that as well, and made it nigh impossible, even without the Supreme Court, to get this get this trial to take place before the election. Well, Arizona did the opposite, right? They left out Trump in order to get this trial,
the rest of
this off the ground. Because if you indict Trump, then that's automatically going to end in a delay, and then you won't get to hold any of these people responsible. But I guess another factor that is important about this indictment in Arizona is these state charges, they can't be pardoned. So they're going to have a lot of incentive to cooperate, because even if Trump wins, he's not going to be able to pardon them. Like if he gets indicted in Arizona, sure, he'll use the powers of the federal government to stay out of jail or whatever. But the rest of these dudes, they shit out of luck. And Trump can't save them. So we're going to have the opportunity for, Trump's lawyers to flip, Mike Roman to flip. Although I guess, given his luck with the Georgia prosecution in making it an investigation into the investigator, maybe he's got a shot of trying to hold out for hope there. But Rudy Giuliani, he's about to be broke. He's not going to have any opportunity to really defend himself with a, high-powered legal firm here. And Mark Meadows, he almost skated with Jack Smith, because it appears as though Jack Smith has some kind of cooperation agreement with him, or at least non-prosecution in exchange for some of his testimony. But now he's not going to skate. He's going to have to sign a prosecution agreement in Arizona to stay out of jail. He just has to. Epstein, I'm glad he's going to jail. I just like his ass. I'm tired of seeing his face. I'm tired of seeing him. Well, I guess he hasn't been doing the rounds on TV here lately, but I'm glad prosecutors are finally going after some of the higher ups. I'm glad we're seeing consequences. I know it took a while, but as I told y'all, just hang in there. Consequences are coming. You should have listened to your boy, because I told you we was going to get here. Look, I hate to be Hillary Clinton, where I'm right about everything, but I talked about the fake electors eventually being subject to indictment by all these states before we ever had a Jack Smith indictment of Trump for January 6th. But here we are.
Guys making fun of my. Oh wait, you can all see.
Yes, yes, it's a visual medium, Carol. We can all see. It's no longer an audio only podcast. No,
I had to put on pants.
We weren't going to say it out loud, but yes, Carol showed up for the podcast in post 2020 fashion, sans pants. So
it's really hot and we don't have AC in yet.
All right. What is the female analog for Jeffrey?
Jeffrey. I don't know.
All right, Jessica Tubin. Yeah, you pulled.
I was going to say Jennifer, but Jessica. Okay,
Yeah,
I wasn't pleasuring myself. I'm just not wearing pants.
Well, that's unfortunate. Don't you think that's what our audience signed up for? All right, so we've got a couple of lighter stories, although they're equally as frustrating as some of the previous developments here. With the New York Times journalist Eli Stokols detailing in a piece that the paper's editor, A.G. Sulzberger, and other top brass directed the outlet to purposefully cover Biden in a negative light because he is yet to sit down for an exclusive interview with the New York Times during his administration.
Isn't it cute how they're willing to help end democracy over a little personal stuff?
And I am not surprised at all. The New York Times has been a fascist enabling adjacent media outlet since the freaking 30s, maybe even before that, but the 30s is since I know of.
It's been up and down.
Friend of democracy. I mean,
I wouldn't go that far, but they have their moments where you. I mean,
there are journalists that I do like who do really good editorials and whatnot. So I'm not going to throw them out with the bathwater with the whole freaking paper. They're the shining lights in that, just like the issues that we have with, Katie Tur and Kristen Welker on MSNBC, but then we have Nicole Wallace, and then we have Rachel Maddow, and then we have, so it's, separating that. However, but they're
Look, we've been talking about this for years now. There's something wrong with the New York Times. And it's so obvious. It's been so obvious here for at least 3 years that there's a whole New York Times pitch bot account whose entire existence is just making fun of the headlines from the New York Times. And it's so bad that some of the headlines, he's like, damn, I wish I had come out with that. They beat me. The pitch bot is like, the New York Times beat me to satire, except it's real. Like one of the worst examples is the one where it was like, two imperfect candidates on abortion, and they're talking about Biden and Trump. Dude, Biden is trying to bring more access to abortion to women in the United States. Trump is the one who appointed them up, took it away.
Tommy
And both of them are
Tuberville held
imperfect.
up military appointments forever because of the Biden administration's policies protecting reproductive health care for women in the military. So what the F word?
Yes. Doesn't it drive you crazy?
And just the constant equating of like, or equivocating between.
Yes, the insane person and the normal
yes,
guy.
on the one hand, we don't like the way Joe
No,
Biden
and who
eats
was it?
ice cream, but on the other, Trump staged a coup. I'm like,
Wait, was
let
it
a
New
million
York
Americans
Times who-
die?
remember after what was it that had happened? And they're like, Hakeem Jeffries lied. And this was after, and he was like, when Mike Johnson acquiesced, that's like the best word that I can say, like for him, to funding for Ukraine. And then it was like, that he was some kind of freaking hero. And then they were like, Hakeem Jeffries asked if he had the votes and he lied. And it was like, this is what you're going with? No,
Yeah,
that was New York Times. And it was like, this is your headline.
They painted him out as like FDR or something. And I was like, what? The dude who's been blocking the A the entire time, he's now like, okay, get out of here with this. But yes, and look, the problem is that we all know that something was wrong, and then to have someone come out on the record and confirm it, it makes it all the more embarrassing. I guess it'd been better off if they had just admitted it from the get-go. But the fact that they're like, again, our democracy is on the line, and they're choosing to ignore the terrorist who's threatened to have them killed should he ever get back into office, and to just do this over a grudge because President Biden hadn't sent down for an interview is bananas. And then I can't imagine how down bad
an interview. Like, seriously?
No, how down.
I can't.
Like,
Well, maybe if they prove that, no, I mean, no one can prove enough loyalty to him, but maybe if they prove that they're not going to cover him in any way that scrutinizes him or says negative things about him, they will,
or
perhaps they
completely
believe
take out
they'll be
of
spared.
context and twist everything that he says for their own purposes, then maybe he will sit down for an interview with you.
I mean, it seems like they're
Howard
bending
Stern.
over backwards for it.
So,
Or
okay, I was going to
bending over
give a middle
forwards.
finger, but I'm not.
no,
But-
please don't. This is not the time or the place. But can you imagine?
I'm not.
Can you imagine how down bad the New York Times must have been when Biden showed up for that interview on the Stern show? I bet they was like, "Dog,
Right
are you
in
serious?"
New York.
In
He
New
showed up to
York.
New York, but not for you.
Not for you guys. And then, of
No,
course,
I think that's awesome because I've been a Stern fan for a really, really long time, and his interviews are pretty awesome. And I think it's great that POTUS sat down with Howard. Howard is really good with just getting to the nitty gritty, and people love to, just like they do with Biden. They're like, oh, well, he said this will be a racial jungle. I was like, you got anything like more recent than 40 years ago?
can we tackle that real? Can I dispose of that nonsense quickly? Like, if you go back and read the entirety of what Biden was saying when he made the racial jungle comment,
Yes.
that wasn't a comment about black people. That was a comment about white people being white kids in some of these schools and these white teachers being unable to handle desegregation. That was it. It was like, he don't trust white people to handle this correctly. And he was right not to trust y'all. No offense, white people. You do okay every rare occasion. But at the time, no. And Biden was absolutely right about, because again, we had to have the National Guard show up to let these kids into school in some instances.
But that also goes to the conversation that we had when we were talking about the 94 crime bill. And then you were like, no, my parents were all for it because they were like, this crime is, and 70% of the Congressional Black Caucus was behind it because they were like, we need to do something. And it was him listening to, so it was like taking out of the context, and it made me look back at my own opinion and looking into it to see where your parents were coming from.
Oh, and yeah. So my parents didn't really talk about politics much in the 90s like that, or at least not with me present. But one of the things that did come up was that crime bill, because, like, you know, my mother, my grandmother, they're like, yeah, clean up our streets.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I mean, another thing like that came up too, this is totally off topic, but like the healthcare that the Clinton, Hillary Clinton was working towards, like, they were in favor of that too, but look, the idea that was a handout, like once you start talking in terms of handout, like that killed momentum for that thing. But yeah, but no, back to Stern in the interview, it was fairly, I found it to be fairly compelling, and a lot of people on the right, I'm sure, are going to make comments about how it was a softball interview for Biden. Well, Stern also gave a softball interview to Trump where Trump said a bunch of raunchy and embarrassing things. So.
And I listened to those interviews because I've been a fan for a long time. And so those interviews, I distinctly remember. I would listen to him.
How long ago was it?
Since 93.
Was he a candidate for president
Trump
at the time?
No, this was before that.
Yeah, it was prior to, because he was doing a lot of rounds on the interviews. This is when Oprah was still on the air, and
It's just funny how willing he was to not incriminate himself, because saying nasty things about your daughter isn't illegal, but like how willing he is to say gross things to impress
when
some
people
fucking random
laugh
dude.
at what you say, when people laugh at what you say, then you're like, well, what I said must have been good. You know?
Yeah, well, that was the thing. Yes, Stern has this way of stringing you along and making it feel as though you just being welcomed into the community when really what you're doing is outing yourself. Did either of you listen to the Stern interview with Hillary Clinton when she was running for office? No?
Possibly.
I didn't listen to. I don't think I
forever.
listened.
That was 1,000 years ago.
Man, I got to tell you, 2016. That was like multiple lifetimes ago. Audience, I don't know how you feel about this, but I feel like post 2020, it's like I really don't even know how to. It's like an episode. It's like the first season of True Detective. It's like time is a flat circle. It's just a whole meaningless circle of events, and it just kind of blurs together and blends together.
No, I am sad.
Yes, and then the next thing you know, we're up for the next Trump Biden election, and just very depressing. But Biden also had a wonderful outing at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. If you've got a range of Biden performances here over the past month or so, with the State of the Union, where he was fiery, righteous indignation Biden, and you've got the Stern interview where he was heartfelt and thoughtful and emotional, and then you've got the White House Correspondents' Dinner where he was
boom, boom.
Yes, where it was a little bit of lighthearted but yet dark Brandon, right?
And you know what? And I absolutely love it, and I have zero doubt that POTUS knows we're in the stretch now. Like we're in, like, you know,
Yes,
I don't want to be
campaign mode.
Bagram territory.
Oh yeah,
and we are moving in that direction, and the stakes are so high, and he is really stepping up and on it. And I think that maybe in the beginning, in the first, maybe 1-2 years of Biden's administration, that he was really thinking in the old school ways of still reaching across the aisle, when he was able to negotiate and make things happen with people that didn't agree with him, before realizing, like, part
of that was just Democrats had the House. So yeah.
But just as the rhetoric has ramped up, and just realizing that this is now or never. and I have to abandon that, but he can't say it.
Yeah, well, I
In
mean,
those words?
it's campaign mode, so like the gloves
Yeah.
are off, and he's taking shots at everybody.
But
I
he
think
also can't say it out loud. You know what I
No,
mean?
but
Like
we
he still has
understand.
to appear.
Dude, he got in front of the press at the correspondence dinner, and he was like, a lot of people are wondering if what's going on in Congress is political theater. And of course, that can't be the case, because if this was a theater, they'd have thrown Lauren Boebert out a long time ago. Do you know how, like, do you know how in tune you have to be with like the level of shade that you are throwing out there to pull off that joke in front of a bunch of journalists? And that is where Biden is, where he's making hand job jokes.
Dark Brandon, man. Dark Brandon for the win.
Yeah.
And he still comes off classy when he says it, even though it was shade beyond levels. But he comes off and it's so smooth.
Yeah, it's one of the things that Trump doesn't have, right? Like, because Trump is always so over the top, and like there's never any subtlety. And unless it's like Trump trying to, you know, insinuate that people should resort to violence. But yet another difference. And also, Biden's willing to laugh at himself. You ain't never seen Trump laugh. Yeah. You've never seen him laugh. Not one time.
I can't picture it.
No, and he damn sure ain't about to laugh at himself. And that's why I like Obama at the White House Correspondents' Dinner roasting Trump, set him on fire. He been having a grudge since Obama ever since. Yeah. You know, that dinner was fun. Biden was amazing. And then so you've got your three variations of Biden here lately. And I'm glad that he's finally get some attention in the media, because he does events and he talks, and you know, he does. I mean, I guess I haven't seen him do a press conference in a while, but he's made some addresses to the media and they just don't get any coverage. And now he's finally breaking through. And this Correspondents' Dinner. This was like,
I think this is one of the best, probably since Obama's. Like, this is one of the most that stood out as far as the Correspondents' Dinner goes. But then again, of course, Trump never participated because
And then 2021, we're like, man, we're scared we're gonna die. And then 2022 still had a little bit of hangover.
And then we did have a whole pandemic, so
right.
That was, but it was kind of refreshing to kind of see, like, it was ribbing, it's a roast, but it was also fun and lighthearted and encompassed all of those things that kind of just remind us of what bringing, dignity and fun back to the White House, and someone who isn't just saying that, you know what, I'm going to kill you because you told a joke about me.
Yes.
Like, that's not where we are right now.
I mean, Colin Jost actually made a joke about how, like, it was nice that they could basically congregate together and tell some jokes and no one threatened to kill another person afterwards.
Exactly. It's always nice when no one is threatened to be murdered. Like, it's always a good thing. But it just reminded us of whoever was in the Oval Office. And, the White House Correspondents' Dinner was just something that was like, looked forward to. That's like, this is going to be like when they used to do the Comedy Central roast, kind of is like, hey, I'm gonna laugh at myself. I'm gonna, we're gonna throw some barbs and it's all in good fun and whatever, and it's gonna be a good night. But it was just a nice, fun night, and just to see everybody participating, and Colin Jost and his telling his story. So it engulfed so many things that have been missing for the past however many years that Trump has invaded our space.
Right. Well, it's funny you bring that part up too, like the Trump invading our space, because someone on MSNBC, I think they were starting to come to grips with where the stakes are, because they were like, hey man, has anyone realized that depending on how things go in November, this might be the last White House Correspondents' Dinner we ever have? Obviously, because Trump, if he gets reelected, he's going to kill the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And I don't mean he's going to cancel it. I mean, he's going to kill them all. So, Carol, it's time for...
When you were talking about the search and destroy, I'm sorry, what did you call it before?
The who?
Their tactic of taking articles out of circulation.
Oh, catch and kill. Yeah, he's going to catch and kill the White House correspondence dinner.
I kept thinking it. Hopefully, we're not going to look back and say, like, remember when catch and kill was just an expression?
Oh, damn,
Christy Noam. Okay.
Yep. Well, dictator for a day, and then he's going to catch and kill all of us. But yes, we're on to our favorite segment, I would imagine. It is time for our shithole of the week award. And I have the perfect nominee. I know there's going to be no dispute.
I feel like I'm going to agree with you. Go ahead.
Yes, in this arena here. So Trump vice presidential hopeful Christy Noam wrote in her book details of how she took her dog out to hunt, and it was ineffective, like a 14-year-old little puppy, basically. And she didn't like it, and she ended up basically shooting it in the face. Yes, the internet was ablaze.
Can I do my middle fingers? Because
unanimous
deserves, all of them. And my toes are doing it right now. You just can't see it.
I'm mad enough at people who return pets.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, don't even bring your dog back to the shelter. Yes. Like all those people went out during 2020 and got dogs and stuff. And then when they went back to work in 2021, they just abandoned their pets. Yeah. Very, very disheartening. No, but the internet was ablaze.
Pets are for life. That's your family. A part of your family.
I mean, different people have different relationships with animals, but I don't think anyone is at a point where they're just going to blast their dog with a shotgun or a rifle or something.
I'm just saying you don't get an animal if you're not willing to have it through its life, unless you're breeding it for livestock. Then that's a different thing.
But yes, just like the internet lit her up, and rightfully so. Her chances of being vice president or at least running mate for Trump are now shot, like her dog. And of course,
what about her chances for being a human fucking being? I'm sorry, I said the F word again.
Well, she was out of that contest a long time ago. But again, as per the usual,
is Trump really going to hold that against her, or just because she's a woman?
No, because she's a weirdo,
and because she's good looking, and he's all about aesthetics. So I really am not convinced that everyone is saying, "Oh, her career's over. Her career's over." I'm not convinced of that. Like, I haven't seen any proof that her career is going to be over.
And if he wins, idiots will flourish everywhere in the country.
I don't know. It's just weird. A bunch of pro-lifers are like, all right, great, let's shoot my dog. But no, as per the usual, Hillary Clinton was right about everything. As she said previously in 2016, you can't vote for someone that you wouldn't trust with your dog. And with that, we hereby award Christy Noam with the Shithole of the Week award. And for anyone who's new to the podcast listening to this, like the Shithole of the Week, we adopted that terminology not to be crass, but it is specifically in reference to Trump's comments about African countries that he made off the record. So, we kind of...
And then again, publicly at a televised convention.
Fair enough.
Yes.
He has since made those comments publicly.
Right. We co-opted the word, and now we hand out a trophy to the worst person in politics of the week, or it doesn't necessarily have to be politics. But
don't be jealous. If you think the name is crass, you should see what the trophy is made of.
Exactly. All right. Closing thoughts, kids. Who wants to volunteer to go first?
I'll do it. This time you can see my enthusiasm when I talk about voter registration.
Oh, yay.
Yay. Register to vote. Bother other people to register to vote. Send them to me and be like, crazy chick wants you to vote. And but what would be crazy is not registering to vote. Now, other things you can do. I've enjoyed writing postcards. Set a reasonable goal for yourself and send a few a day. Check out postcardstovoters.org. That's what I got for now.
Look, I'm pro postcards.
He made me come straight from the airport to the pod. And he's like, by the way, we're going to be on video. And I was like,
oh man, she's like literally fresh off vacation. So we'll give Carol a break today. All right. But no, I'm excited about the postcard things because, look, it's the little personal touches when you reach out to potential voters
absolutely.
to get them to engage with the process that makes all the difference. So kudos to anyone who takes the time out of their day to do the hard work of engaging with potential voters. All right, Ty, closing thoughts, go.
We really need to amplify Project 2025. I've been thinking more and more and more about this all the time. It is not getting any coverage. It is not getting this threat and where we are right now and what we are facing is, and nobody is safe. Nobody is safe. Because if you were to eradicate all the brown people, the Black people that you don't like, who's going to be next? Because these people aren't driven by a certain color. They're driven by their hate and they're driven by their cruelty. So there will always be somebody that they want to denigrize, that they want to marginalize, that they want to subjugate, period. And it's not going to end. It's not going to end with women. It's not going to end with African Americans. It's not going to end with our Black, brown, yellow sisters and brothers. There is no end in sight because their hate has no end. They are fueled by it. They are driven by it. And they will do whatever is necessary to attempt to satiate their desire to hurt other people. And we need to, even if they don't listen, I don't care, but we still need to put it out there what 2025 is about, what Project 2025 is aiming for, period. And that's just my piece. No.
All right, as for me, again, as for the usual, we've had a recent primary election here last Tuesday. Biden, again, is dominating. Trump is again underperforming. He's losing hundreds of thousands of votes to Nikki Haley, even though she's long been out of the race here. Just Trump, again, poor showing after poor showing in every single state here for the, I don't know, since the beginning of the primaries. Yet on Sunday here, CNN dropped this poll supposedly showing Biden losing by a massive gulf to Trump somehow, even though Biden's been leading in the polls here for the last few weeks, or I guess to be more specific, he's been tied, if not leading, in a number of polls. And then we get this crazy outlier where it's 49 Trump, 43 Biden. Very suspicious here how these media outlets only tend to cover these polls when they're not favorable of Joe Biden, because admit it, over the past couple of weeks, probably more than a month, have you seen any media outlet anywhere mention a presidential poll? No, you haven't. You know why? Because Biden was ahead. But the second that it gets a little too close for comfort in terms of Biden having a runaway victory, they got to put out some information to make it seem as though it's closer than it actually is, because that is how they keep you hooked. And the unfortunate thing about the media doing this is it gives a permission structure to people who normally wouldn't vote for Trump if they thought he was absolutely going to lose, to try and show up for some enthusiasm and get him over the edge. It's just, and also it suppresses votes on the other side. If people think Trump is bound to win, they're not going to show up and vote for Biden, when at the end of the day, like, your vote absolutely truly matters. Of course, Biden won in terms of the popular vote in a landslide in 2020, but in swing states there, it was basically a couple 100,000 votes that were the difference between, this Biden administration, where he's been an extraordinarily productive and good president, versus a second Trump term, which would have been the end of our democracy. And it's going to be the same thing in this November, where we need every single person to show up and vote. Otherwise, we could potentially be losing our democracy and our freedom. And even if you're like, say you're like the average white person in a blue state, you think you're going to be safe. No, you're not, because Trump is going to engage in all kinds of illicit behavior to inflict harm to numerous states, regardless of whether they're red or blue. You're not going to be safe. And of course, one of the first things that's going to go is access to abortion. So even if you're in a blue state, you're going to get a national abortion ban. Your access to healthcare if you're a woman is going to be poof gone. So you're going to become a victim to his tyranny too. So keep that in mind. But again, with these polls, they put them out to kind of sway your opinions and diminish your enthusiasm. Don't fall for that nonsense. Trump is, as we're seeing, has a number of obstacles when it comes to even coming close in this election. We haven't even finished his criminal trial, and he's got numerous other criminal trials to go. Don't let the stuff get you down. Don't fall victim to this. You just keep it going, do the work, try and get people to turn out to vote, and we can make sure we bring this thing home in November. And that concludes this episode of Pardon the Insurrection.